You hear these chickens? They want help getting it. See them back there behind me? What you need? All the zombie chickens. No. Missing one zombie, which I think is in the coop already. I think one of the zombie chickens is already. Oh, it's right there on the John boat, and the other black one is too. Oh Lord of mercy! All right, having a bit of a chicken problem at the moment. What's going on, Tyke? It seemed like they want to come get up here on the porch. They may follow you. I think that's their leader.
Come on. Seriously?
These stupid chickens. The meatloaf was fantastic. Definitely enjoyed that. We just grouped up some younger chickens with the rest of the chickens today and let them out in the yard, and now they don't know where they want to go, left, right, or center. They didn't follow the rest of the chickens back to roost, so they kept coming up behind me here. Mandy had to come out and grab them all and start throwing them in the coop. My good Lord. Good to be back outside instead of stuck in the studio. Finally cooled off enough out here. Make it worth coming out and sitting down. The whole family's coming out here now. We got a boy trying to get himself in trouble because he's supposed to be in bed. Shit show tonight. But anyway, hit the record button and we'll dive on into this. Get in the house. My goodness. This week's episode is brought to you by Deep Roots Rifle Company, elevated excellence rooted in integrity and reliability. Use the link in the description to get over to their website and order just about everything you'll need to get into the woods this fall for fully custom rifles built in-house to flashlights to help you find your way in the dark. And be sure to tell them that UPO sent you. Goodness. Maybe I should have stayed in the studio tonight. Anyway. What? Just throw them in there, and I'll take care of the rest later. Yes. My God. My problem with crossbows. First off, here's the facts. Okay. Crossbows were invented around 500, 600 BC in China. The compound bow, 1966. So compound bows hold the market share. In 2022, compound bows represented 60 to 72% of all new bow sales, depending on the region in the quarter. The user base, over 75% of bow hunters use compounds, with millennials driving adoption with 92% in that age group. In 24-25, the combined global compound crossbow market was around 248 to 255 million, with North America alone contributing 57 to 60 million in U.S. sales for 2025, projected to grow steadily to 68 million by 2033. Crossbow sales accounted for 16 to 24% of total bow sales in late 2022. The user base is only 3 to 7% of bow hunters own crossbows. Ownership rates vary by generation, with 3% being millennials, 7% Gen X, and 6% boomers. The growth trend is the crossbow market is growing fast, especially among older hunters and in regions newly legalizing crossbow use. Like Minnesota in 2023 saw a 6% rise in archery license sales, largely driven by crossbow access. So, as much as, this goes into what we'll get in later with the marketing, as much as we would like to believe that, or they would, and I think that's kind of counterproductive as far as the compound archers go, wanting you to believe that everyone is hunting with a crossbow. I can't remember the last time I saw a guy on public land with a crossbow. Of course, actually, I don't think they're legal on public land down here without a permit, but in states where I've seen them, it's not that common. But they would have you believe that it's stupid, the amount of people that own crossbows, right? And that's simply just not true. They're not as popular as they would like to make you believe they are. When it comes to accuracy, crossbow hunters, well, effectiveness, let's say that. Crossbow hunters show slightly higher success rates, with 73.6% accuracy versus 67.6% for vertical bows. Your wounding rates are 18.5% for crossbows versus 30% for traditional bows. What purpose do you think, what's, in your opinion, Sid, what is their purpose? Crossbows. Sid says crossbows do serve a purpose. The reload time for crossbows is slower at 5 to 10 seconds per shot, whereas compounds typically are in the 2.5 to 5 second range. The effective range, however, like I tell people all the damn time, compound bows generally offer longer range and faster shot dynamics, and crossbows excel at ease of use and precision from arrest. Yeah, okay. What disability? Because I know guys that don't have an arm and shoot a compound bow. I mean, I don't disagree with you that it's out there, but I also think that is used heavily as an excuse, but we'll get into that. Demographics and trends, the age factor, right? Older hunters, mainly baby boomers, gravitate towards crossbows because of reduced physical demands. Yeah, shoulder injuries is right, Jake. The disability to practice. Younger generation, yeah, they gravitate towards crossbows because of reduced physical demands. Younger generations, especially millennials, overwhelmingly prefer compound bows. But on the other hand, hunter retention states that legalized crossbows often see increased participation, especially among seniors and youth. Now, if I had to say that there was any reason for a crossbow to exist, I would say it'd be for kids. But even then, I know there's something sacred to me about hunting with a vertical bow, right? Whether it be at a compound bow or a traditional bow. It's in states, that don't force you to wait to buy your license until you're a certain age. Sort of a coming of age thing, in my opinion. You take the time, you fight, you've practiced, whatever else, and then you finally get to where you're drawing enough weight to hunt with, and you get to finally go out and bow hunt. See, Sid says, I think that some look at the crossbows as a scapegoat because they're easy, and some just don't want to put the work in to using recurve or compound bows. Absolutely. I think that's the majority of people. Overwhelming majority of people that shoot a crossbow don't want to put forth the effort to practice. Like Tyke said, the disability to practice. But here's the problem, and I think we see mainly with crossbows, and it's in their marketing, because they're not all that great. Crossbows really are not all that great. Their wound rate is only like 1% better than a traditional compound bow. They're not accurate. A compound bow can be more accurate at longer distances, and I've said that 100 times. But crossbows, and they're ungodly loud. Oh my God. Crossbows can. Where was I going with this? I got distracted. It's their marketing. It's the way they're marketed as these 100-yard group, long-range sniper rifle, speed demon of bows, long-range killer straight out of the box. Variable power scopes like a rifle, shoot it from a blind. Even now, even more of them now have that super small footprint, so they fit well in a blind. Versus the footprint of a vertical bow. So, we talk about speed. The 10-point Nitro 505 tested up to 515 feet per second with a 400 grain bolt. That's a really light bolt, number one. But number two, that is absolutely insane. 515 feet per second. It's widely considered the fastest production crossbow today. And then the Raven R500, chronographed around 504.9 to 512 feet per second. And then your 10-point Vapor RS470, around 467 to 470. Still extremely fast, with top-tier accuracy, and it says very quiet operation. I highly doubt it. Like I said, they're ungodly loud. God, Sid, you're late because you're out practicing shooting your bow. How about that? Great idea. But on the same hand, for all you compound bow guys out there, I'm not done with you yet either. With all the damn advancements, this is. They say you don't have to hold it back. Well, you're not holding back much either with a modern compound bow these days. 85, 90% let off. So if you were shooting 65 pounds, you'd be holding back about, at a 90% let off, holding back about 6.5 pounds. It's not very heavy. Not really holding back much of anything. I would argue the older compounds back in 1966 with the little wheels, those were a little more sporting. Compound bows, more recently, have, with the advancements in technology and compound bows, they're insane as well. You're in my opinion, you're getting really damn close to pushing just being right on the verge of being right there with the crossbow gang. Love me or hate me for it, but 90% let off, range finding sights, Also had to get a new bino harness set up, but guarantee you this, you won't catch me hunting in the woods with a crossbow. Only when I'm out gator hunting. That's fair. Oh, come on, Jake. Did I make you mad? Compound bows aren't much better. I said it. I said I was going to make people mad. I just didn't say who I was going to make mad. Every year they're getting lighter. The whole goal is to make them lighter weight. Lighter pounds you got to hold back when you get it at full draw. Make them faster. Make them quieter. And make them more expensive. Good God. That's why you have that. Because you got a whole lawsuit now on the archery industry for price fixing. And I really think that's, and I know how it happened. I mean, because you look at it, like go on, I don't know, Ruger's website, for example. I'll address that in a second, Jake. But you go on Ruger's website, for example, and you'll see an MSRP for a rifle being $800, and you can look at that and say, I could probably get it for about $150 cheaper at a local store, and you can bounce from store to store and find it for this price or that price. You know, when you see $800 on their website, you're going to pay that much at Academy, but you might be able to get it $100 cheaper at your local mom and pop gun shop or pawn shop or whatever. You can't find that in the archery world. Number one, good luck finding a website that has prices on it, except for maybe Bear. You can't find the price for a bow anywhere online. It's just a guess when you walk into your local archery pro shop. So there is no like MSRP standard. Last time I checked, Hoyt didn't have any things on there, any prices on their website or anything like that. All right, Jake, you blaming me. You say I hunt one season with a trad bow, and now I'm John Wayne. No, I am not. I'm terrible with a trad bow, and I'll tell you that those guys that hunt with a trad bow will wound more deer than anybody else, hands down. But that's right, I am using modern recurve technology. Even in the longbow, it's a recurve or reflex deflex. It's not a traditional self bow. But guys shooting traditional archery will wound more deer. Yeah, it's easy. It's easier to wound deer when you don't have all those helpful things like let off and range finding peeps and pins and everything else. I have nothing against whatever you want to hunt with. However, I do reserve the right to judge you. That's just hands down. But hunt your own hunt. Do whatever the hell you want to do. If a crossbow makes you happy, go for it. I had a crossbow once, and then I got rid of it. Never hunted with it. I don't disagree, Matt. The entire gripe, Matt says, the entire gripe about technological nonsense, our grandpas would use everything we have today, no questions asked. Well, maybe. You say that, right? But you watch senior citizens struggle to use an iPhone. So I understand the sentiment, but Jake says I don't judge anyone for what they choose to hunt with unless it's a crossbow. I judge all of you. I hate you all equally. That's okay. The whole crossbow versus compound bow debate is the same one that public versus private. It's just a crock of crap. Um, Private is easier to. I'll give you an argument for the public versus private debate. I was about to call you out for the e-bike, Matt. I was going to let you ride until you opened up again. I'm glad you beat me to it. Matt says, I need to confess I got an e-bike this year against my beliefs, and I don't give a damn what anyone thinks. Next thing you know, you'll be driving a Tesla. I'm just jealous because I don't know how homeless people afford e-bikes, and I can't. It's ridiculous. Government subsidies, I guess. But the private versus public debate. So it is easier to find big deer on private land, but the majority of the time it's easier to kill big deer on public land. And I'll tell you what I mean by that. The e-bike is cheaper than a mortgage. You're probably, yeah, that's exactly how. It's easier to find big deer on private land because you have a low pressure, right? We'll give you not too big, not too small piece. So you got 200 acres, you're hunting it by yourself. And you've got a good, we'll make it a booner, 170 even. He shows up every 4 or 5 days. So you're trying to pattern that and figure out how he moves to the property. But he's not living on your property, he's just passing through there every 4 or 5 days. So you have to be there on that 4th or 5th day in order to kill that deer. Versus if you're on private or on public land, let's expand that to a 20,000 acre piece of public. It's going to take you way longer to find that booner. But when you do, you may notice you see him on camera in this one spot every 4 or 5 days. Well, then you start placing cameras out around that, and you figure out where he comes and goes from, and you can start honing in on his core area and figure out where you find him every 3 days, every 2 days, every 1 day. And the next thing you know, you're right on top of his bed where he likes to spend all of his time. It's not his bed. What you're going to find him is in a corridor between the bed and food. But you're going to figure out where that corridor is at. And you're going to be able to set up in there when the wind is right, and he's going to pass through there like every day to every other day to go out to wherever he's going to feed, and then wham, you lock him down because you had the freedom of maneuverability. You could get around that so much more area to work with on the public land versus being on private land. You're confined to your own 200 acre boundaries. Sid's getting an e-bike with the game trailer. Yeah, it'd be nice. I'm just going to call you or Matt to come help me drag a deer. You guys pay for the e-bike. I'll get you to come drag a deer for me. There's something to it. I mean, they're nice. They're just stupid expensive. But the crossbow versus compound bow, you're no more effective, statistically speaking, at killing deer with a crossbow than with a compound bow. I think they've seen like a 1% increase in harvest, and yet could honestly be attributed to the fact that you just put more hunters in the woods. In the pipe tonight is the lane limited morning mist. They're pretty good. It's Virginia. Matt says that, or Jake says that Matt should be restricted to a rock after this last season to leave some deer for the rest of us. He did kill quite a few. You're no more, and I think it could be argued that the increase you see in harvest data when crossbows are made legal, because they usually track that after that quite well. If you put, if all those people you saw that same increase in hunting period, they all had compound bows, you'd probably see similar harvest rates, just because there's more people in the woods. There is no, crossbows aren't going to ruin deer hunting. They've been around longer than compound bows. Granted, those crossbows at that point were not near the crossbows you see today, but you could still get the old recurve style crossbows. Hunted with my buddy Tristan. He hunted with a crossbow the first year he bow hunted. The only reason we allowed it, without giving him too much shit, was because he had practiced all summer with a compound bow, and then a week before deer season fell off a roof and broke his wrist. um, how many people do I think hunt crossbows on public land when they're not allowed to? Not very many. I don't think crossbows are as popular as they're made out to be. But Tristan went on and bought a like a recurve style crossbow from Craigslist for $65, and bought it. Had to put a new string on it. Bought a string off of eBay for like $15. Restrung this bow, and then sighted it in the yard. He killed 3 does with it. He was a machine with that crossbow. But it was, even that thing was god awful loud. Like I said, the only reason we allowed it is because he was out there practicing with his regular bow all summer and then fell off a roof and broke his wrist. So that's fair. I don't know that crossbow hunting. I would say, to answer your question more fully, Sid, how many people do I think hunt with a crossbow on public land when they're not allowed to? I would venture to bet that the people who are hunting on public land with crossbows without having the proper permit are probably likely also breaking several other laws that are, probably a little more important than that. Well, yeah, I took that as in breaking the law. So you say you think it could be higher. You see people who could be using one, in your opinion, could be using one, could be using a compound bow when they're using a crossbow. I'm thinking of people just breaking the law in general. Um, what I'm saying is that the people that are out there breaking the law, they're breaking probably several other laws, like as in they don't have a permit to hunt that area, period, may not even have a hunting license, and they're out there with a crossbow. They're just out there being completely lawless and reckless and reckless abandon. Shooting illegal buck deer. But I don't know. I don't think that the rule breaking is near as prevalent as you would think. the majority, well, they say 90% of the poaching is done by 2% of the poachers. People that are poaching are doing it with intention. And they're going to break the law regardless. But, oh yeah. Yeah. My personal opinion is if you want to hunt with a crossbow, you go right ahead. But I'm going to judge you. Just like if you drive a Ford or, whatever. I don't really care what you drive, but it's the same thing to me as Ford versus Chevy debate or Dodge or whatever. We all have our own personal preference. And I get to judge you because I don't like hunting with a crossbow. Doesn't mean it's wrong, especially if it's legal. If it's legal where you are and you're hunting with a crossbow, I could care less. If you're out breaking the law, that's a different story. But I think we can all agree that air bows are not bows. Although I guess they're getting some traction too. Which at that point, if you're going to allow air bows during archery season, and air bows being these literally look like guns shooting an arrow off compressed air, like a pellet rifle, a PCP pellet rifle. If we're going to allow that, well, then, who cares? But you called it a bow. Sydney said air bows are guns. But you just called it a bow. Is it an air bow or is it an air gun? But here's the problem. All the infighting, left, right, center. If you go to these meetings and you see these crazy people, what they want is to get rid of archery hunting. That's one of the things they want. They don't like hunting with dogs. They don't like hunting with bows. They claim it's arrow gun. There you go. They claim it's inhumane wound rates. They're nothing to back it up. But that's their next target. And if we're fighting with each other and we're fighting to have, if you're a hunter and you're sitting here wanting to petition your state to remove crossbows from archery season when they're already allowed, I think it's one thing to keep them out if they're currently out, but if you're trying to go the other direction and reinstate legislation that is going to otherwise make them illegal to hunt with, that's a problem, because you're giving up ground that we don't need to be giving up, and that's just not going to end well in the long run, because that's where they want to go. They want to continue to take. And Tyke, I know you can attest to this, living out there in California, as much as they've taken from hunters in California. That's where they're trying to do with everything else, is take that away. Take more and more and more and more and more, to the point that they took days from your season, all kinds of dumb crap. I know we've talked about your hunting laws out there a little more extensively, and if you think Florida's are stupid, my goodness. Oh, Jake, you can't jump fences? Hey, you sounding like a real poacher. Yeah, they did change rules to say you can only go in and out of a wildlife management area from its entry and exit points, which I think is a bit stupid. It's just going to create a bottleneck and crowding. It is what it is. We'll all figure it out. People will still do that, and that'll be the first thing they'll get you for. I wonder how that's going to look for some places like the National Forest, where there's just trails off of roads, but off of main highways. I'll have to look into that. Don't know. But, well, ladies and gentlemen, I think I'm going to jump off of here, finish this pipe, and you all have a wonderful evening. I'm going to go check on my chickens. Crazy chicken crap from the beginning. We'll figure it out. Catch you guys later.